Hello everybody and welcome to the first video in what we're sort of calling week one of this training video series. This is text functions or text manipulation week, and I'm coming to you with a workbook, free workbook that you can download, and hopefully some useful insights to sort of layer on top of what you're going to see in that workbook. So there's a few things that I wanted to kind of set out straight away. Firstly, if you've come here directly without seeing the introductory video that Dirma and I released the other day, please go to that first. I'll make sure there's a link below, but that introductory video, which is about 25 minutes long, really just sets the scene for everything we're trying to do in this series over the course of the next few weeks, and maybe for longer if we enjoy doing this and you enjoy, you know, the information that we're sharing. So have a look at that introductory video first if you haven't watched it. Secondly, the idea with my videos at the very least is that I'm not going to just spoon feed you, you know, here's a function, here's the syntax, here's the way that it is kind of generally used, and move on to the next. I feel like that is something you could get anywhere. And I think it's probably a little bit boring and dry if I just do that and rinse and repeat. So the workbook that I'm sharing for free as part of this series is something that I've pulled together from a lot of the training that we've got at Full Stack Modeler. And the workbook is really self-explanatory. It gives you the control to just go through it tab by tab, to read through all of the guidance that we've got pretty much by function. Some worksheets are a little bit different, but broadly speaking, a tab or a worksheet will just be looking at one function. And then you've always got a bunch of exercises that you can practice the principles that we're showing you directly yourself. So what you can see on screen is the workbook that you're going to be able to download. And I would just ask you as you go through this to go through it with me. Try not to jump too far ahead if you want to kind of stick with the journey that we're going to share in this video series. But do spend the time going through the relevant tabs, reading everything that we've put in there, and going through each of the exercises. The whole point of me not really just kind of showing you each function individually step by step is because I just think you need to go and practice. Anyway, huge bunch of caveats to start off with. What does this workbook look like, and what do I want to cover today? So the workbook has a version control because I know that there are going to be little tweaks and updates that are going to be made to this as we go through. There's a little bit of guidance that you'll see on a read first tab. And then we get into the individual functions and the exercises. So for this video, and I'm going to try and keep all of these down to maybe 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to be looking at left, right, len, find, and a little bit of search as well. Mid, and I'll throw in substitute as a little bit of an extra. This is a core set of functions that to some extent you could argue are a little bit outdated when you look at more modern function releases like text split, text before, text after. So we will come on to those more recent functions later on in the week. For the moment, for today, I'm going to pretend they don't exist. So we're going to be looking at some text manipulation, extracting text from longer text strings using these functions, and really the power from these functions comes when you start using them in conjunction with each other. So even though I said I wasn't going to go through each of them in detail, I will just give you a very, very quick summary of all of them because it should only take a minute. Left allows you to extract text from the left-hand side of a text string. Right allows you to extract text from the right-hand side of a text string. Len, essentially think of it as shorthand for length, gives you the length of a text string in terms of the number of characters. Find allows you to literally identify the text or the character position within a text string of a particular character or of a subset of characters together. Essentially, you can find a specific text string within a text string. Search, I talk about on the Find tab, but search is very, very similar to Find, but it ignores any case sensitivity and it allows you to use wildcards, which is really, really powerful if you're looking for collections of characters together. And then mid's a great function. Mid allows you to extract text from somewhere within a text string, and you essentially define the starting position and the number of characters that you want to extract. The first thing that I just want to share with you is to think really visually about what these functions do together. I kind of tend to think of this a little bit like a carpenter or a stonemason, or think of some sort of profession where you've got a raw block of material and you need to carve that up somehow. Well, you've got tools like LEN and you've got tools like Find that can pinpoint or give you information about that text string that you can then use. And then left, right, and mid are tools a bit like a chisel or a hammer or whatever it might be that allow you to cut that raw material up into different sized blocks. And when you use them together, think of it like, what do you do when you start cutting up material of some sort? Well, you want to measure distances. You want to measure distances, put points on that material, and then use your tools to carve them up. So think of it visually like that as a set of tools. Okay, so what I wanted to do next was not go through every single line of detail on every tab, but to just walk you through a bit of a journey using the same bit of text data, and we'll walk through some simple extractions and then things that are a little bit more complex and require us to use some of these functions together. So on the left tab, let's start really simple. We've got this text string, this data set of text strings. And it's kind of a really badly formatted set of dates. We wouldn't normally want dates in this format. Let's say we wanted to extract the year from the left-hand side of those text data sets. Well, we could use left. We could even just get away with using a hard-coded 4 for the number of characters because you can just see it's consistent. It's not ideal. If there were changes to the data in the future, this wouldn't work. But based on what we see, a hard-coded 4 and the left function would work. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Let's go to the right tab. What if we stepped this up a bit? So how about if we wanted to extract the day reference from the right-hand side of each of these rows of data? Well, we've got a bit of a challenge on our hands because now we can't get away with just hard coding the number of characters because it's not consistent. Sometimes we want to extract 4 characters, sometimes it's 3, so we can't get away with a single hard-coded assumption, and we certainly don't want to be going in line by line and changing that assumption. We need something that's going to be able to look at the lines of data row by row, measure something out to allow us to extract the right number of characters row by row. One of the tools we're going to use to do this is LEN. So all I'm doing in LEN on this step of the journey on this example is I'm saying, right, calculate the total number of characters row by row within that data set, and you can just see that the total changes. And then we get to one of the layers of sort of magic from bringing these functions together. I've solved the problem here. It's the same data set, and look, I've got the day references coming through, and it's looking at it dynamically and pulling the right number of characters row by row. How's it doing this? Well, it's using write, len, and find. And in your head, I would separate out the len and the find from the write. I actually break this down into the 4 individual steps. We're finding the hyphen that comes before that day reference in the text string. So whenever you have challenges like this, you want to look for some item, some sort of delimiter, a character, a set of characters that's consistent that you can use as that measuring stick. And we're going to use the last hyphen there that comes before the day reference. And we're going to use find to find the location of that last hyphen. So if you think of what we can then do with len and find, we can say, okay, give me the total length of the text string, give me the position where that hyphen is, and we just adjust it by 1 to get rid of the extra space, minus 1 from the other, and what we're left with is just the number of characters that come after the hyphen minus the 1 for the extra space. And then we can apply that to write, and it's going to extract that dynamic number of characters from the right-hand side row by row. That wasn't clear as an explanation. Just have a look at the 4 steps that I've showed you there on the Find tab. Just to add one extra layer on this, what if we wanted to extract the month reference, the text word month and the number from the middle of that text string in that data set? Well, again, we've got another challenge. I don't think we can just use write easily this time. We also can't just use a static number of characters from the middle, because you can see month 11 and month 5 have different character lengths. So what have we got to do? Well, we use find twice. What is consistent in that text string? Well, actually, if you look at it, it's that we've got a hyphen after the month reference and a hyphen before. So if you go back to that sort of visual analogy of somebody measuring something, what do you do when you try and put a shelf on the wall or whatever it is? You get your pencil out, you get a tape measure, and you measure a distance from A to B, and then you make those cuts. And that's exactly what we're doing here. We're using find twice to identify the locations of the 2 hyphens, and then we're using mid to extract that reference in the middle. Again, if that isn't too clear, just have a look at the steps that I've shared, steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, which just walks you through that process. All right, that's nearly it. I don't want this video to be too long. There's a couple of extra nuggets that I want to share with you to go away and maybe just research a little bit more on your own. One is this, okay? I think sequence is one of the most innovative and exciting new functions that we have available to us. And what's really nice is when you have a function like sequence that can generate an array of values back, and you plug them into some of the more traditional functions, you get this whole extra layer of capability that we never had before. So mid and sequence being used together is a brilliant example of this new layer of functionality. Here's a really simple example. Let's imagine we've got somebody rolling a die. I had to Google a die or dice. I thought die was plural, but it's not. So you've got somebody rolling a die, and in one cell, we've got a log of the rolls that they made. So they rolled a 3, then a 6, then a 4, then a 5. All of that roll data is in one cell. What if we wanted to extract those rolls from that one cell and present them cell by cell? So just one roll in an individual cell. Well, we can use mid and sequence to do that in a really dynamic way. And actually, I'm using LEN within there. Think back to what we're doing with mid. We're looking at a text reference, a text string. In this case, it's a set of numbers, but it will come back as text. And then what we're saying is, give me the start number, but actually we've then nested sequence in there. So rather than a fixed start number, we're saying, give me the start number of every single position within that text string. And that's what you get back. You get this array, this spilt array back, which has now presented every single one of those numbers in an individual cell. We could add a transpose on the front of this. Let me see if I can do this. Transpose. If I spell it right, transpose. Imagine you wanted it by column, not row. That's probably because I've still not spelt this right. There we go. Okay, so you could add a transpose to that, and it's going to profile it by column rather than by row. But let's take that off. And then for those of you that are familiar with text join, you could, if you wanted to, then relayer that back up into one cell again, but you could add your own delimiter. So I think some of these new functions add some amazing new capabilities. Have a look at sequence, have a look at text join. The last thing I'll leave you with is substitute. So you'll see this being used quite a lot in battles. Substitute allows you to do exactly what it kind of says on the tin. You can substitute particular characters for other characters. And one of the most common use cases you'll see this for in battles is just getting rid of characters. So imagine you've got a text string here with a bunch of hashes in. You could use substitute to just remove the hashes or substitute the hashes with nothing. You could do find and replace, but you kind of lose the audit trail of it. So keep an eye out on substitute. That could be really, really handy in battle situations. that's all I wanted to cover for day one. So please go through each of the tabs, go through each of the exercises. There's a couple of extra exercises for you afterwards, and stop there if you can. In the next video, I'm going to move on to text split, text before and text after.